Hey folks, Mark Levin here. Now, before we dive into today's episode, I want to talk about something truly valuable, protecting your financial future with gold. It's called diversification. Now, for that, I only trust Advantage Gold. They're the real deal with 5-star service and a sterling reputation. So give them a call today. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. Trust me, you'll thank yourself in the future. Now let's get to the show. Results may vary. Consult with your financial professional.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
My name's Larry O'Connor. I'm sitting in for the great one, Mark Levin, on this pretty consequential day in American history as this Torquemada-like Spanish Inquisition leader, Jack Smith, this special prosecutor who is, I think, absolutely deranged, has doubled down and re-indicted Donald Trump, even after a federal court in Florida has dismissed charges that he brought in that state because the federal judge questioned whether he had even legally and constitutionally been appointed as a special prosecutor in the first place. And, of course, these charges related to January 6th have been re-presented, retried in front of a grand jury, and now refiled with the federal court today, 70 days before the election, after the Supreme Court had sent them back down to him, telling him that he had overstepped his powers with regard to presidential immunity. But nothing is stopping this man who works for Merrick Garland, who works for Joe Biden, who works for Kamala Harris. And they all work, of course, for Barack Obama. We've got all the details on this indictment, this outrageous judicial nightmare that is being done in your name, by the way. Understand that this man, Jack Smith, a special prosecutor, I think unconstitutionally appointed by the Justice Department, by Merrick Garland, that little dwarf. This man is carrying all of this out in your name. You know that, right? Taxpayer, citizen, are you listening? These charges brought today by Jack Smith were done in your name, on your behalf. 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. Let's talk about this and talk about all the other. Our long national nightmare is over. Kamala Harris has agreed to an interview. Sort of. She's going to sit on CNN with Dana Bash, and she can't do it alone. Kamala Harris, the most competent, brilliant, enlightened, transcendent political figure of the last 100 years, according to the script that was written at the Democratic National Convention last week in Chicago. Kamala Harris is incapable of sitting for half an hour and answering questions of the likes of Dana Bash on CNN. She's going to have her little pal with her, that Tim Waltz guy, you know, the one who lies about his record and seems to have major temper issues. Yeah, they're going to do it together. They're a team, you know. They're a team. 877-381-3811. Like I said, my name's Larry O'Connor. You hear me on a semi-regular basis, filling in for the great one when I get the opportunity. Mark Levin's off tonight. Very happy to be here. As a matter of record, I'm a radio host out of Washington, D.C. Been there for over a dozen years now. I do the morning show on the mighty WMAL, which is Mark Levin's home in the nation's capital. Go ahead and check us out, follow us. Listen to our show as we stream. My on-air partners are Julie Gunlock and Patrice Onwuka. And then, you know, you'll hear Mercedes Schlapp there sometimes. And we had Molly Hemingway last week and a whole host of amazing conservative women who come in and sit with me during the show. And we wake you up and get you going every single day. You can also see me on townhall.com's social media sites as I do a daily video show there as well. You can catch that at the Town Hall sites or on Town Hall's YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, X. I don't know. It's everywhere. Speaking of Town Hall, the website that I call home when I'm not on the radio, great reporter Mia Cathell has the write-up here. Jack Smith files new indictment against Trump in J6 case. Federal prosecutors have filed a new indictment in the January 6 case against former President Donald Trump after the Supreme Court granted the 2024 Republican nominee substantial immunity. You know, I'm told that the Justice Department doesn't like to even comment on cases within 60 days of an election, lest they be seen as anything but non-political and impartial. Right? You hear that all the time. Oh, we're loath to take up any kind of cases or even discuss ongoing investigations this close to an election because the last thing the Justice Department wants to appear as is political. Oh, we are pure as the driven snow. There's nothing political about us. So 60 days, that's the rule. We wouldn't touch anything 60 days out. Check the calendar, guys. Today's day 70. They're so smart, aren't they? Aren't they cute? 70 days out, and Jack Smith doubles down and refiles these charges. Why? Can I ask you something? Why? We'll get into the details of the charges and what he did to try to dance around the Supreme Court's decision. Let me reiterate. A federal court has already said that this guy probably shouldn't have even been named a special prosecutor, and they threw out the bogus classified documents case. Then the Supreme Court says, what the hell are you doing, Jack Smith? You can't bring these charges against a former president based on conversations he had with his staff. You know, the original indictment brought in evidence of the crime based on conversations that a president had with his staff and cabinet members. And there was some question as to whether there's immunity. Of course he's got immunity for that. But it took the Supreme Court to smack him down. And boy, he didn't waste time, did he? I ask the question again, why? Everybody on the planet knows that these charges that got put out here on the 27th day of August, 70 days before Election Day, everyone on the planet knows that this thing is not going to see the inside of a courtroom before the election. Jack Smith knows that. Merrick Garland knows that. The judge in the case knows that. Anybody with a fair mind knows that this case, what he just filed today, is not going to have any kind of judicial advancement before Election Day. So what's the point? He could have done this the day after Election Day. Oh, but if he wins the election, well, that complicates things, right? That messes everything up. Well, then what do you do? Yeah, we're gonna file these charges now. We're gonna get a bunch of headlines. It's gonna dominate the news because, you know, the news has been pretty good to Donald Trump with that RFK endorsement and today's Tulsi Gabbard endorsement and the fact that Kamala Harris's polls are starting to dip and the fact that he was there yesterday honoring our fallen service members from the Abbey Gate disaster, the terrorist attack that murdered 13 American service members because they sadly had the wrong commander-in-chief that day 3 years ago. Well, Donald Trump was there acting as head of state, acting as the president because Joe Biden is MIA, Kamala Harris is AWOL, so there's Donald Trump doing the job. That's a really nice press cycle. It's a great media cycle for Donald Trump. So, yeah, maybe today's the day. Let's get those indictments in. Let's get those headlines. Let's knock good news for Trump off the headlines because, you know, the last thing the Justice Department wants to do is be seen as political. So the indictments are filed today, getting all the headlines, changing the news cycle. Now Jake Tapper can furrow his brow and say, the former president Donald Trump is facing yet more legal challenges now, more charges. No candidate for president has ever had to deal with this sort of thing, has been prosecuted by a court of law, found guilty in a civil court. The number of charges, he's a 38-time convicted felon, and we're just going to have to report this to you as much as it pains me to do it. Can't you see that my brow is furrowed? I'm Jake Tapper. And that's what the news cycle will be, because Jack Smith knows that this is not a legal move that he made today. This is a political move that he made today. And the only reason to do it today is political, because he wants to upend the election. He wants to alter the election. He wanted to get Donald Trump prosecuted before the election. That didn't happen. So now all he can do is try to meddle with the election, interfere with the free democratic process. I've been told recently that meddling and interfering with an election is the worst thing that anyone can possibly do. It's insurrection kind of act, isn't it? It's an insurrection kind of act. But that's Jack Smith for you. You know, because Jack Smith and the Justice Department would never want to be seen as political. Back to Mia Cathel's write-up here at townhall.com. Spokesman for Special Counsel Jack Smith said the superseding indictment, which was presented to a new grand jury, one that had not previously heard evidence in the January 6th case, reflects the government's efforts to respect and implement the Supreme Court's holdings and remand instructions, according to the court filing Tuesday afternoon. Why now, though, is the only question you should be asking yourself. There is nothing done here that he couldn't have done after the election, considering the immunity case, which, by the way, they're trying to work through and remassage in the appeals court, and they're trying to appeal the decision down in Florida as well. I mean, even Alvin Bragg, the corrupt Manhattan district attorney who brought the ridiculous made-up criminal charges against Donald Trump over the non-disclosure act that he agreed to with Stormy Daniels that she violated, but then suddenly that becomes a state crime and an alleged federal crime, which still hasn't been identified by Alvin Bragg. But even Alvin Bragg has agreed to delay the sentencing process until after the election. When Alvin Bragg actually begins to look less political than you know you've got a problem, Jack Smith. So here we are 70 days out, and Jack Smith reintroduces these charges. The allegations against Trump are slimmed down in light of the Supreme Court's immunity ruling. The prosecution has not dropped any of the 4 charges they initially brought against Trump, as he's charged with the same supposed offenses. However, the current indictment carves out some of Trump's alleged conduct. And there were some changes made, ostensibly to accommodate the Supreme Court's ruling. Here's the interesting thing. I've breezed through this. It's many pages. It's very long. I've seen many summaries of the indictment. And I can boil it down to at least the 4 charges here. It's very interesting. See if you notice what I notice here. Excuse me, 3 criminal conspiracies, 3 charges here. Number 1, conspiracy to impair, obstruct, and defeat the lawful government function of certifying an election. Number 2, conspiracy to obstruct and impede the Electoral College proceeding on January 6th. And number 3, conspiracy against the right to have one's vote counted. Did you notice what I noticed when I read those? Did you notice? And then I said, wait a minute, something's got to be wrong here. So I searched through the entire document. I've looked through many of the write-ups here, done some word searches to make sure that I'm not missing something that, because my eyes, I'm getting up there. Not as young as I used to be. But it's true. I can confirm exactly what you're recognizing here as I lay out those charges Jack Smith filed once again today. He's not charged with insurrection. Donald Trump has not been charged with insurrection. Insurrection against the United States of America and the federal government of the United States of America, that is, in fact, a crime. It's a crime on the books. Jack Smith could easily bring that charge against Donald Trump. If Jack Smith had evidence that Donald Trump was in some way guilty of insurrection or conspiracy to commit insurrection, he could have brought those charges. He didn't. Do you know how many people have been arrested connected to the events of January 6th? Do you know how many people? About 1,000 people. 1,000 American citizens, including Donald Trump, have been charged with crimes related to the events of January 6th. Now, how many of them have been charged with insurrection? I've already told you one of them, Donald Trump. He has not been charged with insurrection. Do you know how many of those 1,000 have, though, been charged with insurrection? Do you know? Do you have an idea? None. None. Millions upon millions upon millions upon tens of hundreds of millions of dollars spent on the prosecution or attempted prosecution of over 1,000 people related to January 6th. That I'm told by that same guy, Jake Tapper, George Stephanopoulos, and certainly Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, I'm told that January 6th was an insurrection. And yet with all that money and all those FBI agents and all of those prosecutors and your special prosecutor, because he's super special, that Jack Smith, and all the paperwork and all the court filings and all of the charges, not one of them have been charged with the criminal charge of insurrection. That's not so. How can that be? Because I just saw the convention last week in Chicago, and everyone kept talking about an insurrection. He led an insurrection. There was an insurrection. We'll see insurrection. I guess they forgot to fact check that one. I guess they forgot to fact check the use of the word insurrection when not one person has been charged with insurrection. I want to tell you a little bit more about these outrageous, disgusting political charges. I want to tell you a little bit more about Jack Smith so you remember just how dangerous this maniac is. And I want to hear from you as well. 877-381-3811. My name's Larry O'Connor. I'm in for the great one, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin.
The cracks in our economy are widening by the day. We've got a labor market that's cooling faster than expected. Unemployment jumped to the highest since the end of 2021. The market could be in free fall any day as investors panic over a potential recession. Now, some bank stocks are getting hammered as fears of a downturn grow. Even the Fed is talking about rate cuts to prop things up. In uncertain times like these, you need a solid plan for your wealth. That's where gold comes in. It's been the ultimate safe haven for as long as we've used money. And when it comes to gold, I trust Advantage Gold. They're a top-rated American gold company and can help you protect your hard-earned money. Call Advantage Gold now at 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit and to see if you qualify for $1,000 in free silver. Don't wait. Call 800-900-8000 today. That's 800-900-8000. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. That's 800-900-8000. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
Larry O'Connor in for Mark Levin today. And we got a lot about Kamala Harris. By the way, she's trying to rewrite her record and pretend like she's not the radical left-wing extremist that she is. We've also got an out-of-control Secretary of State in Michigan who's tampering with the election in that state already. They're doing it right before your eyes, the Democrats are. They're messing with the election. They're tinkering, interfering. They're using the court system. They're doing everything that they can with millions and millions of dollars of dark money funding it all. They were actually doing, in the last 24 hours, between this Jack Smith indictment and the actions in Michigan and Wisconsin to try to tamper with the ballot and who gets to be on and who's going to be removed from the ballot, they are doing exactly what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard have said compelled them to leave that party and join forces with Donald Trump. This is fast becoming not a Republican versus Democrat election. It's becoming an authoritarian tyranny versus everyone craving freedom, trying to cling on to the last vestiges and hopes of freedom in this country. That's where we are right now. And this action of Jack Smith today has reinforced all of those problems, all of those reasons, all of the concerns and fears that we all have. And let's just not forget Jack Smith. You know, his last big claim to fame with the Justice Department, he prosecuted Governor Bob McDonnell in Virginia over so-called corruption charges. Bob McDonnell was a rising figure in the Republican Party. He was seen as a potential running mate for the Republican ticket against Barack Obama in 2012, or potentially nominee himself in 2016. Instead, he got prosecuted for corruption charges by Jack Smith. The Supreme Court then unanimously, pre-Gorsuch, pre-Barrett, pre-Kavanaugh, that Supreme Court unanimously threw those charges out. This man knows only one thing: using the law as a weapon to help Democrats. We've got more details on it. We've got your calls. I'm Larry O'Connor. It's the Mark Levin Show.
This is Mark Levin with an urgent message. We are living in grave and dark economic times that are going to get worse. We just saw an abysmal jobs report while unemployment shot up to the highest level since the end of 2021. Meanwhile, the stock market looks like a gamble. Many banks are getting crushed as recession fears mount. The S&P Banks Index fell 2.4% in a single day. That's a lot. Regional banks fell nearly 3%. That's even more. These are bad signs. Even the Fed is talking about rate cuts. You need to protect your wealth. That's where diversification and gold comes in. It's been a bedrock of wealth preservation for centuries, and the best company I know of is Advantage Gold. Their experts can help you protect your savings from economic chaos. Call now, 800-900-8000, for a free gold investment kit and see if you qualify for $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Don't wait. Call now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
Right versus left is right versus wrong. Call Mark at 877-381-3811.
Hey, it's Larry O'Connor sitting in for Mark Levin today. We spent a little time talking about this ridiculous, outlandish political move by Jed, this corrupt, I'm sorry, it's just a corrupt man. He's a corrupt man who uses the law to punish people. He doesn't care if 3 years later the Supreme Court overturns it, as they did with Governor Bob McDonnell, the Republican governor of Virginia. He doesn't care because he never suffers any punishment because of his outrageous, unconstitutional use of the law. Understand something. What I just laid out for you, as an assistant U.S. attorney for the United States Justice Department under Barack Obama, he used the law, he used federal law to go after a sitting politician, an elected official, charge him with corruption charges, and the Supreme Court unanimously threw out the charges. Now, any other prosecutor who suffered that kind of humiliation, that kind of public spanking by the entirety of the Supreme Court, any other prosecutor you would think would be punished, would be demoted, would have to leave the profession. I don't know what you do for a living, but probably in your profession there's like a metaphorical Supreme Court, right? There's some sort of pinnacle, right? And then the law profession, in the federal judiciary and federal prosecutors, that like the Supreme Court is it. That's the Olympics, man. It's the Super Bowl. Well, think about that in terms of your industry, in terms of your profession. And you are found by that pinnacle, by the highest possible seat in your profession. It is determined that you were completely and totally cheating. That you circumvented and were outside the boundaries of every professional norm in your industry, right? What else do you call a federal prosecution overturned unanimously by the Supreme Court? This isn't some, some tort thing, and I'm sorry, I'm not a lawyer. Levin, if he's listening, is probably screaming back at the radio. This isn't some minor little, regulatory decision that the Supreme Court makes. This is the prosecution of an individual, the absolute destruction of his career, of his reputation, of his life. A governor of a state who is on track to run for a national office was convicted of corruption. His life was ruined by a federal prosecutor, and when the Supreme Court had a chance to look at it, unanimously they throw it out. And what happens to Jack Smith? He's promoted. He's celebrated. He's lauded. Do you ever hear about what he did to Governor McDonnell in Virginia? It wasn't that long ago. It was less than 10 years ago. But see, you have to understand something. Sadly, the way justice works now in this country at the federal level, with the corruption that we have seen firsthand, Jack Smith actually got rewarded for that because he did his job. He did his job. Oh, his job was not to seek justice. His job was not to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. Oh, sure, he said that in his oath of office when they were swearing him in. That's not what they mean. Come on. No, he wasn't there to seek justice. He wasn't there to execute the law and order and to protect the people and institutions. He wasn't there to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. He was there under the orders of the Obama administration and Attorney General Eric Holder. He was there to do one thing: go after Republicans. This Bob McDonnell guy who won the governorship in 2009, he's a threat. You got to ruin that guy. That's what they did. He absolutely did his job. Of course he got rewarded. Years later, the Supreme Court overturned it unanimously. Who cares? It doesn't matter. The job was done. So, of course, that's the guy these corrupt, desiccated old jerks, Joe Biden and Merrick Garland, choose to go after Donald Trump. Every single thing that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said on the stage Friday, every single thing Kamala Harris said yesterday in endorsing Donald Trump about what has happened to the Republican Party, where this party has gone, every single thing they said as to why they are repelled by the party they grew up in, the party Kennedy was born into. It's playing out before your very eyes. Yes, with Jack Smith today. And also with the Secretary of State of Michigan, my home state, state I was born in. In Michigan, the Secretary of State has refused to take Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s name off the ballot. At the same time, the Secretary of State of Michigan is fighting to get Cornel West's name off the ballot. Now, I'm going to need someone smarter than me to explain that. At the very same time, she's determined that a man who has withdrawn his name and is not seeking the presidency, that his name should stay on the ballot. At the very same time, she's saying that another man who is actively seeking the presidency and wishes to be on the ballot, he can't go there. He can't be on the ballot. That's Cornel West. Now, I only jokingly say that you have to explain this to me because, of course, I understand this and I can explain it to you very succinctly. Here's why this makes sense. Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s name being on the ballot would help Kamala Harris. You see, because if Kennedy's name weren't on the ballot, then Kennedy voters will vote for Donald Trump. Or at least a net positive of those Kennedy voters will vote for Donald Trump, helping him. Now, if Cornel West's name is on the ballot, well, Cornel West voters are not Trump voters. They're Harris voters. And so if Cornel West's name is not on the ballot, well, that will only serve to help Kamala Harris. There you go. That's the explanation. Her name is Jocelyn Benson. And she decided today unilaterally with the powers of the Secretary of State in Michigan that Kennedy's name will stay on the ballot. This is Secretary of State of Michigan, Jocelyn Benson.
If someone were to violate the law and not certify the election at the local level, we will come for you. So any local certifier thinking of skirting the law and not certifying the vote, don't even think about it.
We will come for you? As I said, this is no longer an election between Democrats and Republicans. This is an election between tyrannical authoritarians and everyone trying to hold on to some vestiges of the first three words of our Constitution, we the people. Remember them? Remember we the people? This is where we are. Cornel West, by the way, the aforementioned, who is now trying to stay on the ballot in some of these states, had quite a revelation about Kamala Harris and the Democrats. This was speaking to a podcast called End Tribalism. Boy, everybody's got a podcast today. Listen to Cornel West talk about what the Harris administration, what the Harris campaign and the Democrats did.
Did they just one more on this? Did they offer you? Did they offer you a cabinet position, a lower position, and offer to pay off any of your campaign debt?
Well, they offered serious substantive conversation about all of those that could lead toward some real possible. You know what I mean?
So they were trying to get him to drop out of the race, and they were saying, "Hey, Cornel, come on, man, we're with you. We're all about critical race theory. We're all about, using academia to poison the minds of young college students with Marxist thought. We're just like you. Come on. Why are you fighting against us? Why don't you drop out of the race? And then we'll help pay your campaign debts off. And then maybe we'll have a nice, cushy administration job for you when all is said and done. What do you want? What kind of job you want? I can't promise a cabinet secretary, but something good, something powerful, something you'll be able to use to divide our country even more along racial lines. Come on, Cornell. You're tired of being a professor. I mean, I know you don't actually do anything. You got tenure. You get paid a chunk of money to write a book every year, and then you get royalties on that book, even though nobody buys it, but you probably put it on the curriculum so all your students have to buy it because it's in the syllabus. Come on, you're getting bored with that, aren't you? Come work for me, and I'll pay off all your debts. Just drop out of the race because I want that power. Something tells me that's not legal, by the way. I don't think you can trade anything of value, like a job in the government or actual tangible money to pay off your debts. I don't think you're allowed to do that in exchange for political favors. I think there's a word for that. I'm pretty sure. That's who we're up against right now. That's who Donald Trump is up against right now, every single day. That's the corruption he's facing right now. And all you hear from the media about any of these stories today, there's Donald Trump in trouble again. Oh, and Secretary of State of Michigan, Joycelyn Benson, she is ensuring that the state's laws are being upheld when it comes to ballot access. That's how they cover it. And let's reflect again on all the joy and girl power we saw at the convention last week. Hey, let's start with Robert in Brooklyn. Robert, thank you for calling and waiting. My name's Larry O'Connor in for Mark Levin. Quite a day already, Robert.
Yes, quite a day. Well, thanks for taking my call. But just before I get to Jack Smith, just about Kamala, GovTrack had ranked Harris the most extreme senator, liberal senator in 2019, and in 2020 she was the second most extreme.
Yeah.
As vice president, she had 33 tie-breaking votes. She's an extremist. She's an extremist. She doesn't want to do any interviews. She wants to camouflage who she is like a chameleon. She is horrific. She's a communist. She's the worst. Now, to get to Jack Smith.
Hold on. You buried the lead on that story, though, Robert. I'll let you finish. But you're right. GovTrack rated her out of 100 senators, she was number 100 as the most radical left-wing liberal. But you know what GovTrack did next, right? They deleted that page off their website. They're rewriting history. They're like Stalin, erasing people from pictures. If you try to find that information now, you won't. Because it became an issue. You know, the Republicans were pointing it out, and so GovTrack, a nonpartisan organization that's not supposed to be political, they deleted the information off their site. Isn't that beautiful?
It's unbelievable. 2019, the number one, and 2020, second, number two, only to Bernie.
Yeah.
Now, but in terms of Jack Smith, this is pure harassment because, first of all, it's questionable whether he even has jurisdiction because, as Judge Cannon already ruled, the appointments clause. So what's going to happen? It's going to get appealed, and it's going to ultimately, what's going to happen? Go to the Supreme Court to decide whether this guy even has jurisdiction. So what are they going to do? What do they want to? If he doesn't have jurisdiction, they're going to give it to another attorney to go through the whole thing all over again? They're just dragging the excruciating pain on Trump. What they're doing to him is horrific.
It is.
And I just want to point out about Trump.
It is bullying. It is harassment. But Robert, let me just explain real fast. None of it makes sense based on how you just laid it out, because you're thinking as a rational, values-based, compassionate person who would actually look at the law and think that it's supposed to be used to actually prosecute criminals and seek justice for the American people. But that's not why they... Didn't you just hear what I said? Jack Smith is not there to do those things. If you look at it, understanding that he is a bully who has been hired to use the law as a weapon to punish the political enemies of the state, of the Democrats, of Biden and Kamala Harris, then it all makes sense. That's the only reason it makes sense, Robert.
Well, I mean, as you pointed out, these are totalitarians. You have RFK and Tulsi Gabbard, moderate Democrats who just can't stand it because it's so horrific. Yeah. Now, in the case of Trump, he was the president of the United States. He had a legal obligation to uphold the law. He believed that there was election interference. He had the right to do everything legally possible to try to seek redress. Also, he's the aggrieved party. They stole it from him. He has the right to seek redress from the legislature. And all the people who demonstrate, they have First Amendment rights, as long as they're peaceful protesters. Yep. This is outrageous what they've done to Trump and the J6 people.
You're right, Robert. Keep that passion, keep that anger, focus it, funnel it every single day between now and election. Robert, thank you for the call. I appreciate it. And you left one other right out that Donald Trump has, and that's right to free speech. He's allowed to say whatever he wants about the election. He's allowed to say whatever he wants about that election to whomever he wants. That's what the First Amendment is all about. But, of course, as I pointed out earlier, that's why you don't see the word insurrection anywhere in these legal filings in any of these charges, because it wasn't an insurrection, and he's not guilty of insurrection. Period. End of story. This isn't about justice. It's not about crime. It's not about the American people. It's about punishing Donald Trump, and they're going to continue to do it. But see, here's the funny thing. It actually, at this point, has the opposite effect. I mean, I'm angry at these charges because I actually revere the law in this country and our Constitution. But I'm not angry because this is going to politically harm Donald Trump, because it's not. If anything, this will help him. More on that coming up in just a moment. And yes, by the way, quickly, I just heard Robert call Kamala Harris Kamala. And good God, I mean, Jesus, Robert, why do you want to do that? It's like wearing a Klan hood around here these days. That's like I don't think. In fact, did you have to bleep that? Because I said Kamala. Listen, I forget now the right way to pronounce her name. All I know is that one of them is very racist, and God, I hope I didn't do that. It's Larry O'Connor in for the great one, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin.
The cracks in our economy are widening by the day. We've got a labor market that's cooling faster than expected. Unemployment jumped to the highest since the end of 2021. The market could be in free fall any day as investors panic over a potential recession. Now, some bank stocks are getting hammered as fears of a downturn grow. Even the Fed is talking about rate cuts to prop things up. In uncertain times like these, you need a solid plan for your wealth. That's where gold comes in. It's been the ultimate safe haven for as long as we've used money. And when it comes to gold, I trust Advantage Gold. They're a top-rated American gold company and can help you protect your hard-earned money. Call Advantage Gold now at 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit and to see if you qualify for $1,000 in free silver. Don't wait. Call 800-900-8000 today. That's 800-900-8000. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. That's 800-900-8000. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
It's Larry O'Connor sitting in for Mark Levin today. You can follow me on all social medias. It's Larry O'Connor with an O-R at the end. And I do the morning show on WMAL in Washington, D.C., the finest talk radio station in the nation. No offense to whatever station you're listening to right now. But you can catch us streaming everywhere. And I also do a daily show for Town Hall Media, a video show that you can catch at noon Eastern or after the fact on whatever social media platform you like watching videos on. Appreciate you being part of the show tonight. We've got a lot more coming up. Kamala Harris has now agreed to do an interview. Wow, that's huge, right? Wait a second. J.D. Vance and Donald Trump are doing like 4 interviews a day. This is a big deal. Kamala Harris is going to answer questions, which of course means that Kamala Harris has finally figured out, what her policies are, which is, I guess, also a rather big deal. We'll give you the details on that. We'll also give you the details on some more policies she's completely flipped on, including, get this, believe it or not, she now wants to build a wall on our southern border. Yeah, that's just how racist and xenophobic she is. Finally, a quick note. I've been in a fantasy football league for about 20 years now, and we had our draft last night. And I just want you to know, I changed strategies. I went for receivers heavy instead of running backs this year. Ended up with C.J. Stroud as my quarterback. I'm a Michigan guy. He's Ohio State. It's okay. The point is, I got an A on my draft.
This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
My name's Larry O'Connor. I'm in for Mark Levin. You've heard me before here if you're a regular Levinite. I am pleased to be one of the regular fill-ins here for the great one. He is the greatest talk show host of our time, and always an honor and a humbling experience to sit behind his mighty microphone. Thanks for letting me, though, be a part of your afternoon or evening, depending on what time zone in this great country you're listening in on. I'm a morning radio host on WMAL, which is the mighty legacy heritage radio station in Washington, D.C. Perhaps you've heard of that town. It's a strange little district, a federal district. It's not a state. It's a city. It's a swamp. It's something else is what it is. But the surrounding areas are fantastic in the Mid-Atlantic, from Annapolis down to Richmond and all the way into West Virginia. This is where our signal reaches. But, of course, these days, thanks to the incredible Internet, brought to you by Albert Gore Jr., well, you can listen anywhere, and I implore you to do so. It's a great morning show, 5 to 9 Eastern. We get you started every single day, streaming everywhere you like to listen to streaming things. And I'm joined every morning by my co-hosts, either Julie Gunlock or Patrice Onwuka, both of Independent Women's Forum, and then oftentimes Mercedes Schlapp from CPAC. Last week we had Molly Hemingway from the Federalist, Fox News. We get a lot of good guest hosts in, and it's a great program. So I appreciate you listening to me tonight, and maybe you'll try me elsewhere when you have a chance. You know, a story broke late yesterday afternoon that didn't get a whole lot of attention, of course, in the mainstream media, certainly. And I actually have not seen a whole lot of people right-of-center media discussing it in talk radio. It may have been because this hit sometime later in the afternoon yesterday, 6:45, in fact. It was during Mark Levin's show last night that it hit. A letter was delivered to the House Judiciary Committee by one Mark Zuckerberg. He, of course, the founder, owner, and CEO of Meta, the social media company that owns Facebook, Instagram, and a couple of AI things that freak me out. You know Mark Zuckerberg. He sent a letter to Chairman Jim Jordan of the House Judiciary Committee that confesses, basically. It confesses. That's the best word to use. This letter is a confession of what Facebook did on their own at times and under coercion from the federal government over the course of the 2020 presidential election and then in the intervening years, 21 and 22, during the COVID-19 pandemic. We've just spent some time discussing the corrupt Democrats and their use of the law to try to tamper with this election, to try to keep you from being able to have a free choice of your candidate, whether it's Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Cornel West, certainly Donald Trump, who they are trying to prosecute rather than let you vote for him. They have already tried to take his name off ballots. They continue this effort. They continue this process. They are the greatest threat to the democratic process in this constitutional republic you will see today. And this letter from Mark Zuckerberg sheds light on what they did in the past so that you can be aware and be ready, because there's 70 days left, friends. There's 70 days left. And if they have done everything that we know they have done leading up to this point to try to corrupt the democratic process, Lord knows what they have in store for the next 70 days. They've already pulled the switcheroo, knocked Biden out, brought in Kamala without a single vote, allowed her to inherit the campaign war chest and the nomination without any process at all. And all last week, all we did was celebrate the happy, happy, joy, joy. Oh, there's electricity in the air. Huh. Sure. You better say there's electricity in the air. or they're going to have you sit down and have some electricity in your chair. This is how authoritarians work. So you need to pay close attention to this letter, because this is an indictment of the corrupt federal government that has meddled in your affairs, in your constitutional rights over the past several years. And again, this letter specifically to Chairman Jim Jordan of Ohio, chairman of the Judiciary Committee. And I point that out because Jordan has done an incredible job in methodically going after all of the corruption that he said that he would. This doesn't happen overnight. He has investigated the laptop. He has investigated the media's suppression of the laptop story. He's investigated and brought impeachment charges against Joe Biden. He's was able, along with Jason Smith at Ways and Means, to upend the sweetheart deal that the federal the U.S. attorney was going to give Hunter Biden, giving him immunity. Instead, now Hunter Biden's at least facing some federal charges, at least on tax charges, and hopefully on some FARA violations as well. Jim Jordan promised to have these investigations, and he only was able to make that promise and fulfill that promise, Congressman Jordan, because of the midterm elections in 2022. I know you all wanted a bigger margin, but I remember sitting in for Mark Levin, I think a week after that election in 2022, and I said, guys, I know you're downhearted. I know you wanted a bigger majority. I know you were hoping for a lot. But the fact of the matter is, having a 20-seat majority or having a 2-seat majority really doesn't make much of a difference if you don't have the Senate. All that matters is having the majority, even if it's a small majority, because that means Jim Jordan is the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. It means James Comer is the chairman of Oversight. It means Jason Smith is the chairman of Ways and Means, and that means investigations. The power of the gavel goes with a 1-seat majority. And if that majority had not gone to Republicans, we wouldn't have known any of the things that we have learned in the last year and a half. I know all of you. Well, they should do something. They should put people in chains. They should, throw them in jail. They are limited in their power, and that's a good thing. You want them limited. Now, listen, I wish that they used the power of the purse more. That is one of the powers that they have. And they should have the cojones to stand up there and say, not another penny for this corruption. You're right. They should do that. But somebody always whispers in their ear that will cause a government shutdown and Republicans always lose. And what can I tell you? This is why whenever asked, we always say we're conservatives, not Republicans. Because Republicans ultimately, they act cowardly. They do. They're always afraid of government shutdowns. Democrats are never afraid of government shutdowns. And the response is always, well, because the media is not fair. Yeah, okay. Thank you. We've been dealing with that for 50 years. Grow up now. That's not going to change. All right. But I digress. I want to get to this letter to Jim Jordan. There's a lot. This is Mark Zuckerberg in his letter to Jim Jordan, chairman of the Judiciary Committee. There's a lot of talk right now around how the U.S. government interacts with companies like Meta, and I want to be clear about our position. Our platforms are for everyone. We're about promoting speech and helping people connect in a safe and a secure way. As part of this, we regularly hear from governments around the world and others with various concerns about public discourse and public safety. I want you to remember that he's framed this entire thing with, listen, we may make decisions about censorship, or as he puts it, content moderation. It's censorship is what it is. That's a euphemism. This is Orwellian talk. But he's framing this entire thing based on, hey, listen, if we've done these things, we're doing it because we're concerned about public safety. This is this toxic notion that's been implanted via liberal arts colleges and people getting advanced degrees in anthropology, and it's implanted into your kids when they go into higher education and sometimes even secondary public schools. This notion that words are violence, right? I don't want to sound like an old fart here. I guess I'm not that old. But I literally grew up hearing the opposite. Sticks and stones, yeah, they'll break your bones, but words can't hurt you. Suck it up. So they said this to you, so they said that to you, so they called you a name, so they said horrible things to you. It means nothing. That's not what people are taught anymore. That's not what children are taught anymore. They're literally taught the audience. They're literally taught the opposite. They're taught that words are violence. And that's how the head of the most powerful social media company on the planet, which, like it or not, has become the pipeline and gateway and platform and town hall for much of the free speech we engage in today. That's how he can frame all of his censorship. Content moderation within the confines of concerns around public discourse and public safety. Because words are violence, because words will get people killed. So, we move on to this letter. In 2021, senior officials from the Biden administration, including the White House, repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire. Get that. Humor and so the Biden administration calls out, hey, Facebook, you gotta censor these people. You gotta delete these things. They're joking about the masks. They're joking about the shots. They're joking about social distancing. They're making jokes. They're making fun of that. That's unsafe. You're gonna get people killed. Facebook's like, guys, it's a joke. It's satire. It's a cartoon. It's a parody. It's the freaking Babylon Bee. What are you talking about? And, we pick up the letter from there. Mark Zuckerberg continues. They expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree. Ultimately, it was our decision whether or not to take the content down, and we did. We own our decisions, including COVID-19 related changes we made to our enforcement in the wake of the pressure. You hear that? They put pressure on their teams for months to censor COVID-19 content, including humor and satire, and expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree. If you don't like something Facebook's doing, if you're seeing content that you don't like, or if some of your content is being shadow banned or censored or silenced or removed, if there's stuff that's going on Facebook that you don't like and you want to express your frustration, you can send a little message to them on Facebook. You can click on the buttons for complaints during in the help portal, the troubleshooting portal, right? You can deal with whatever AI bot you get to handle your frustration over the actions of the mega monolith that is Facebook or Meta, right? Yeah, you can do that. And no one's going to care. No one's going to listen. Like I said, some AI bot somewhere in Singapore is probably registering your complaint. Okay, duly noted. Thank you so much. But when a senior official in the White House calls and expresses frustration to the same people at Meta, they don't get an AI bot. They get Zuckerberg on the phone. They get the executive vice president under Zuckerberg on the phone. It's a lot different when they express frustration, which is a really cute little way of Mark Zuckerberg framing it. I believe the government pressure was wrong, and I regret that we were not more outspoken about it. I also think we made some choices that, with the benefit of hindsight and new information, we wouldn't make today. Like I said to our teams at the time, I feel strongly that we should not compromise our content standards due to pressure from the administration in either direction, and we're ready to push back if something like this happens again. Oh, sure, yeah. Now that the damage is done. Think about this for a minute. Biden administration calls up Facebook and says, you got to delete all this stuff. These people are saying that ivermectin is good. These people are saying that they should try hydroxychloroquine. These people are saying that there's dangers with the COVID-19 shots. These people are saying that the masks are ineffective. These people are saying that the virus probably started in a lab in Wuhan. We can't have that. This is dangerous. You're going to get someone killed, they're saying. And so Facebook deletes it because, Facebook is concerned about public safety. Because Facebook, well, heck, we were in the cloud of war and nobody really knew it was a brand new virus, and they didn't know all the science, and we wanted to caution on the side of safety. We wanted to make sure our default position was to better safe than sorry. We better delete all this information. After all, the call is coming from the White House. We don't want anybody harmed because we let a post about the benefits of ivermectin stay too long on Facebook. So let's delete it because we don't want anyone to be killed. There's more to this letter, and we're going to get to what Facebook did with the Hunter Biden laptop story. But on this in particular, the censorship over opinions being expressed about COVID-19, in a moment, I'm going to explain to you how those decisions to censor information and silence free speech about COVID-19, that actually could very well have gotten people killed. If you're really worried about public safety. I'll explain in a moment. My name is Larry O'Connor. This is the Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin.
I'm going to let you in on a little wireless trick that can cut your cell phone bill in half every single month. Other major carriers want you to believe you need unlimited data so they can overcharge you. Here's the fact. Most of you are buying way more data than you'll ever need and you'll ever use. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, only charges you for data you actually want. Listen to this. For $25 a month, you can get unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data plus mobile hotspot. Do you know what you can do with 5 gigs of data? You can browse the internet for 135 hours, stream 1,000 songs, or watch 10 hours of video. Folks, stop overpaying for wireless. Get 5G coverage with Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Switching is painless. It's easy. There's no contract, no activation fee. You can even keep your phone and your number. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month on top of all the other savings when you sign up with Pure Talk.
Larry O'Connor in for Mark Levin. We're talking about this letter that was acquired by Chairman Jim Jordan of the Judiciary Committee after thousands of documents that had been subpoenaed, after much testimony, some very intense scrutiny over Facebook's behavior over the last several years on a couple of issues, including censorship on COVID-19. And I just read this one paragraph where he admits, Zuckerberg admits that it was the Biden administration that put undue pressure, repeated pressure on their teams to censor information about COVID-19. Ultimately, he didn't agree. He regrets doing it, but he says it was about public safety. So hear me out. Let's say you got a friend who has COVID and it's a bad case of coronavirus and his doctor prescribes ivermectin and it ends up being a miracle for him and it really works. And there's been tons of people who that's been the situation. And so they go to Facebook and they say, hey, guys, listen, if you're suffering from coronavirus, ask your doctor about ivermectin because it really worked for me. And this is my results. And this is my personal results. This is my truth. This is what happened to me. And it's worth a shot if you've got a bad case and you are, don't have any other solutions, because God knows the government wasn't giving us any solutions. They said it was untreatable. And then the Biden administration says, hey, we can't have that. Delete that. Delete that. That's unsafe. You can't have anybody talking about that. And so Facebook deletes it. How many people didn't see that advice? How many people didn't see that post? How many people with bad cases of coronavirus who could have seen that and gone to the doctor and say, hey, doc, what about this ivermectin thing? And the ivermectin doctor says, sure, we can try that. And they could have been helped. What happens if people died because that post was deleted? Don't think to yourself that they were just better safe than sorry. No. That's not what this was.
I'm going to let you in on a little wireless trick that can cut your cell phone bill in half every single month. Other major carriers want you to believe you need unlimited data so they can overcharge you. Here's the fact. Most of you are buying way more data than you'll ever need and you'll ever use. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, only charges you for data you actually want. Listen to this. For $25 a month, you can get unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data plus mobile hotspot. Do you know what you can do with 5 gigs of data? You can browse the internet for 135 hours, stream 1,000 songs, or watch 10 hours of video. Folks, stop overpaying for wireless. Get 5G coverage with Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Switching is painless. It's easy. There's no contract, no activation fee. You can even keep your phone and your number. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month on top of all the other savings when you sign up with Pure Talk.
The Mark Levin Show, live and national at 877-381-3811.
Larry O'Connor sitting in today for the great one, Mark Levin. We're going to get to this new agreement that's been made. That Kamala Harris is going to deliver an interview, my friends. This is is there nothing this woman can't do? She's gonna actually sit for an interview and answer questions? I'm okay. I'll believe it when I see it. I didn't know she was capable of such things. We're going to give you the details on this. Huge development. Huge. And also some of the latest policies that she's completely reversed herself on, or at least we're told she's reversed herself. We don't know because she won't say a damn thing. But now I guess she wants to build a wall, and I think she wants to dance after every rally to YMCA, and she's got these new fancy red hats she's going to wear. I mean, why bother at this point? We're talking about this letter from Mark Zuckerberg about their behavior, Facebook's behavior, infringing on your constitutional rights, on your free speech via censorship. And the censorship, of course, only goes in one direction. And they'll tell you, like I just said, oh, we didn't know, and we were just trying to save people. We were trying to help people. We didn't have all the facts yet. Well, stop right there. We're talking about a disease and a pandemic and a virus, and you want us to buy this thing that you didn't know all the facts yet, and therefore you silenced people. Just hit the brakes. Hit the brakes. In all of world history, when there is ever a controversy over whether people should be able to express themselves and speak freely without punishment, and even more importantly, because this is the most important part of free speech, is the freedom to listen. You see, when Donald Trump was removed from Twitter and Facebook and all these social media platforms as a punishment for being, icky, yes, his freedom of speech was infringed, absolutely. But you, the American citizen, your rights were infringed because you have the right to hear what he has to say. You see, the First Amendment operates for everyone, the speaker and the listener. The reason you want free speech in a free society is so that people can hear you. Not just so you can stand on a corner and rant at an empty sidewalk, although you do have the right to do that as well. No. When you're on the side of silencing people, you're always on the wrong side of history. I don't know one example that anyone can show me where the good guys were the people silencing the citizens. And this, and remember where I asked you to pump the brakes? It was where you said it was a new virus. We didn't know everything. We were trying to save people, and that's why we censored this information. You didn't know everything, full stop. You didn't know. Now, first of all, I reject the premise that you didn't know some of the things that you censored. Those guys who said, hey, sure seems like this virus probably came from this lab in Wuhan instead of the bat soup at the open-air market. That was deleted. That was censored. And you knew. Don't tell me you didn't know. You knew. You censored that information not because it was dangerous and you were worried about people's safety. You censored it to cover your butts. You censored it to protect yourself. Number one. Number two, well, we didn't know, we didn't have all the facts about how to treat this thing, so we wanted to delete information to protect people. If you didn't know, then how did you decide what was to be deleted and what was not to be deleted? You see, it turns out that people who were put on ventilators, remember the first couple of months? It was all about ventilators. We don't have enough ventilators. We have a ventilator crisis. We have a ventilator shortage. We're never going to get enough ventilators. Andrew Cuomo and his daily rants there in Albany. Where are my ventilators? I want my ventilators, right? Turns out ventilators didn't actually do a lot of good for people. You got put on a ventilator during the pandemic. That was pretty much a death sentence. It was over for you. But if you took to Facebook and said, boy, I sure hope we could get more ventilators for people, that wouldn't be deleted. No, because conventional wisdom at the time was ventilators were an important part of the therapeutic process of coronavirus. It was early on, but that was the thought process. That was conventional wisdom. So conventional wisdom said that was fine, so that didn't get deleted. And then suddenly, as I just stated, you've got a doctor who prescribes somebody, try this ivermectin, try this hydroxychloroquine, try these other methods, try zinc, let's load up with zinc. And then suddenly it works for you. And you go to Facebook and you say, listen, this is anecdotal. I can only tell you what my doctor did, but I had a bad case of it. And as soon as I got on this program, ivermectin, zinc, it worked. It helped me. Now, at the time, conventional wisdom, the politicized conventional wisdom, was that kind of thought process, that kind of speech, that's going to get someone killed if they listen to it and they do it. So it's got to be deleted. The fact of the matter is, as I just pointed out, that by deleting that advice, that recommendation from a family member, from a friend, who knows how many people may have shared that post on Facebook before it got deleted. By sharing that information, you could have actually helped someone. You could have actually given somebody relief. You could have actually saved them. The fact of the matter is, by deleting that post at the command of the Biden administration, somebody could very well be dead right now because they didn't read that post. That's why you don't censor. And that's why you don't hide behind this cloak, this noble, sanctimonious cloak of, I was trying to save people's lives. Censorship doesn't save people's lives. Censorship protects the person doing the censoring. Period. And punishes the people trying to speak and listen. But this is just part of the Mark Zuckerberg letter. Let's move on to the election tampering, shall we? Because you hear this paragraph right now, and you're going to want your 2020 election back. Mark Zuckerberg continues in this letter to Jim Jordan. In a separate situation, the FBI warned us about a potential Russian disinformation operation about the Biden family and Burisma in the lead up to the 2020 election. Well, that's an interesting sentence, isn't it? The FBI warned us about a potential Russian disinformation operation about the Biden family and Burisma in the lead up to the 2020 election. Now, we know what that's a reference to now in hindsight. That's the Hunter Biden laptop story that had all that evidence about the Biden family corruption. Yes, some of it involving Burisma in Ukraine, right? But what's interesting to me in this sentence, and I'll read it to you one more time, the FBI warned us about a potential Russian disinformation operation about the Biden family and Burisma in the lead up to the 2020 election. This is before the New York Post story came out, right? This is a warning. Hey, guys, you may see something like this. It's Russian disinformation. But, of course, now we know that story is not Russian disinformation. So what exactly did the FBI know? How could they have warned Facebook about the Hunter Biden Burisma scandal, claiming it was Russian disinformation, which we know, of course, now that it is not Russian disinformation? How could the FBI have warned them about them in advance of the New York Post article? It's curious, isn't it? Well, it's not if you actually follow this story. It's not if you read the New York Post. It's not if you're actually plugged into media that is honest and interested in facts and the truth. In other words, not cable news, not network news, not the Washington Post and the New York Times. You see, it was December of 2019 when the computer repair shop owner in Delaware handed over Hunter Biden's laptop to the FBI. December of 2019. In December of 2019, the FBI had the laptop. They knew what was on it. They knew it wasn't Russian disinformation. They knew that it was authentic, and they knew it was real. And they knew that between then and the election, this story could leak. And so what did they do? What did Donald Trump and Bill Barr and Christopher Wray's FBI do? They went out of their way to warn Facebook that this true story could be coming their way. But of course, they didn't say it was a true story. They said it was Russian disinformation. That is the FBI while Donald Trump was president of the United States. They did that. And they knew full well that the story was real because they had the evidence. They sat on the evidence. They did nothing with the evidence except use it to warn Facebook that if they see any stories about it, it's Russian disinformation. Continuing with Mark Zuckerberg's letter. That fall, when we saw a New York Post story reporting on corruption allegations involving then Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden's family, we sent that story to fact checkers for review and temporarily demoted it while waiting for a reply. It's since been made clear that the reporting was not Russian disinformation, and in retrospect, we shouldn't have demoted the story. We've changed our policies and processes to make sure that doesn't happen again. For instance, we no longer temporarily demote things in the U.S. while waiting for fact checkers. Don't you want your 2020 presidential election back? I want my 2020 presidential election back. Now, over at Twitter, we know through the great reporting of Michael Schellenberger and Matt Taibbi that Twitter just deleted those stories completely. They deleted the stories. They deleted the accounts. They blocked people for sharing the New York Post article. Same thing on YouTube, same thing on Google. The whole thing got demoted. The rest of the media ignored the story, never talked about it at all, treated it like it was the plague. They were all warned, of course, by the FBI that it was Russian disinformation. In fact, if they ever did talk about that story, this truthful story, this fact-based story, the story that the FBI knew was legitimate and authentic, if the media ever did talk about that story in the weeks leading up to the presidential election, it was only to tell you that it was Russian disinformation and to implicate Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani and anyone else working on the Trump campaign as being propagandists and tools for a foreign adversary like Russia, that they are peddling Russian disinformation to help our adversaries and steal the election. That's the only time they would refer to this story. And now, 4 years later, 4 years later, Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook says, yeah, we probably shouldn't have done that. You know, Media Research Center, the great Media Research Center. In fact, I think Brent Bozell, the founder and president of Media Research Center, was just on Mark Levin's Life, Liberty, and Levin. Media Research Center did a survey in the months after the election. And the survey asked voters if they had known all of the facts about the Hunter Biden laptop story, would that have affected your vote for Joe Biden in the presidential election? And it's kind of an important question to ask, considering that the majority of the American people did not know the truth about the Hunter Biden laptop story. because Facebook demoted anybody sharing that story. Twitter deleted any sharing of the story, and the rest of the media had a complete and total blackout, except for when they were reporting that 51 intelligence officials are claiming that this story is Russian disinformation. So if anyone did know anything about the story, they probably knew that it was Russian disinformation. But after the election, Media Research Center asked voters, if you knew the truth, if you knew the facts, if you knew the reality of the Hunter Biden laptop, would that have affected your vote? Have you ever heard of this survey? Do you know about it? In a moment, I'm going to tell you the results of that survey. What percentage of voters would have changed their vote and not voted for Joe Biden 4 years ago this fall in 2020? I'll share that with you in just a moment. My name's Larry O'Connor. This is the Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin.
I'm going to let you in on a little wireless trick that can cut your cell phone bill in half every single month. Other major carriers want you to believe you need unlimited data so they can overcharge you. Here's the fact. Most of you are buying way more data than you'll ever need and you'll ever use. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, only charges you for data you actually want. Listen to this. For $25 a month, you can get unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data plus mobile hotspot. Do you know what you can do with 5 gigs of data? You can browse the internet for 135 hours, stream 1,000 songs, or watch 10 hours of video. Folks, stop overpaying for wireless. Get 5G coverage with Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/LEVIN. Switching is painless. It's easy. There's no contract, no activation fee. You can even keep your phone and your number. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/LEVIN, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month on top of all the other savings when you sign up with Pure Talk.
Mark Zuckerberg, the chairman, founder, CEO, whatever the hell his title is these days, at Meta and Facebook, wrote this amazing letter. It broke late yesterday afternoon, early evening, from the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman Jim Jordan, the chairman there. Great work from Jordan and his staff in getting this letter. I wish it had more attention. I wish more people were talking about it. I hope that you are now aware of it. There's a few write-ups out there about it, talking about how the Biden administration pressured him to censor during COVID-19, during the pandemic, and how specifically the FBI forewarned them about a story that the FBI knew full well about. The Hunter Biden laptop story and his ties to Ukraine and Burisma and other nefarious dealings with foreign adversaries. It's amazing how this Biden family only does business with, Russia, China, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, the other countries, guess what is Stan, whatever they all are. They're not doing, they don't do good business with Finland, right? They don't do business with Australia. They only deal with like these evil nations, like, Canada. I'm kidding. I love Canadians. Poor things. I haven't won a Stanley Cup since the 90s. So after the election, now that we know that the FBI undermined the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and forced these companies to delete and censor this story that they knew full well about, how did it affect the election? Media Research Center, they did a poll. 16% of people who voted for Joe Biden would have voted differently. I don't know if you remember 2020, it was kind of a close election. 16% of Biden voters would have either voted for Trump, for a third party, or just not voted at all. That's the difference in an election. Do you understand what we're facing now for the next 70 days? Are you ready to face it? Are you prepared? That's why you need to be right here with the Mark Levin Show. I'm Larry O'Connor.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
My name's Larry O'Connor. I'm sitting in for the great one, Mark Levin. I've had a lot to say so far tonight. It's time for you to have a say, too. 877-381-3811. We're going to talk about this debate that Kamala Harris has now finally deigned to participate in. Oh, God, we're so lucky to have a woman like Kamala Harris walk amongst us. We don't deserve her. And now she's gonna lower herself to our level and actually sit down and answer questions? Oh, amazing. Now, here's the problem. She's agreed to do this interview with Dana Bash at CNN. And I'll be honest with you, I've been watching Dana Bash for a while, and I know some people say, I want to give Dana Bash credit. I'm not interested in giving Dana Bash credit right now. Because, let's face it, if you are the reporter who is chosen as the interviewer, the preferred interviewer of choice for Kamala Harris after how many days now of not answering a single freaking question? Finally, she's, all right, fine, I'll sit for an interview. I'll do an interview. I picked Dana Bash. Let me tell you something. Dana Bash should be looking in the mirror right now saying, what have I done wrong in my career that she thinks she can roll over me? That she thinks I'm going to be the... Because that's what this is. That's the message. This is the most dubious distinction. Kamala Harris avoiding any questions, won't give an interview. You're trying to protect her, wrap her in bubble wrap, just drag her across the finish line in November without any harm done. Okay, got it. It looks like we got to do an interview. Okay, fine. Dana Bash. That won't hurt. Seriously, how humiliating for Dana Bash. Clearly she's been chosen because the calculation is she's a pushover. She's not going to ask anything. Well, see, this is where you come in. 877-381-3811. Let's do Dana a solid here. Let's help her out. Can you think of a question? A good question for Kamala Harris? That you'd like it? I bet you have a question. If you had the opportunity to ask Kamala Harris a question, just one, I bet you will come up with a better question than anything we will hear from Dana Bash at this interview Thursday night. 877-381-3811. Let's help her out. Let's do her a solid. Let's give Dana Bash some advice. I want to hear your recommended questions for Kamala Harris. Oh, and it's even better. Kamala Harris is going to be joined by Tim Walsh. She can't do it alone. She needs help. She's using the buddy system here. Donald Trump gave a press conference in Mar-a-Lago like a month ago for an hour and a half? Almost 2 hours? He has sat with how many interviews right now? Network interviews, cable news interviews, podcast interviews, local news, national news. J.D. Vance, same thing. J.D. Vance was interviewed by Dana Bash one-on-one 10 days ago. The last time Kamala Harris was on CNN for an interview, you're going to love this. It was 2 months ago. Kamala Harris went on CNN to answer questions of Anderson Cooper. It was after the debate that Joe Biden had with Donald Trump. Here's Kamala Harris last time she was on CNN answering questions.
What we saw tonight is the president making a very clear contrast with Donald Trump. What became very clear through the course of the night is that Joe Biden is fighting on behalf of the American people, on substance, on policy, on performance. Joe Biden is extraordinarily strong. And
on
cannot
substance
be
and
debated.
policy and performance tonight, the president's performance tonight clearly was disappointing for his supporters. One said it was a disaster. Another called it a train wreck. Those are Democrats especially worried that Biden did not punch back on Trump's lies.
Anderson, the point has to be performance in terms of what a president does. A president who incites an insurrection against the Capitol. No, but I got the point that you're making about a 1.5 hour debate tonight. I'm talking about 3.5 years of performance in work that has been historic
But is that the man who we saw on the stage tonight? Is that the person you see in meetings every day?
Yeah, and we had the Curb Your Enthusiasm music on there for a reason. Because this is a farce. And she's a joke. And by the way, I want you to notice something. When Anderson Cooper interrupted her several times in that interview and talked over her, not once did she say, "I'm speaking. Excuse me, Mr. Cooper, I'm speaking." She's going to do that a lot with Donald Trump at the debate. That's her plan. That's her little trick. That's what she does. So the last time Kamala Harris went on CNN to answer questions, she lied through her teeth. And it was so implausible that even Anderson Cooper had to call BS on her. And now we're going to have Dana Bash. And let's remind you who Dana Bash is. Here's a quick highlight of Dana Bash. Very recently, I want to say it was maybe a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. Here's Dana Bash conducting a panel discussion on the show Inside Politics, doing nothing but running interference and doing damage control and being a spokesperson for Kamala Harris.
This is the kind of thing that is playing out all over conservative media. I just want to do a little bit of record correcting. There's not record crime right now. Number one, Harris was put in charge, as you said earlier, of combating the roots of immigration. She was not and is not the border czar.
There you go. That's Dana Bash. We do not have record crime, and she was not the border czar. And by the way, she was reading it. I would love to, have the camera zoom in on what she was reading, because I'm pretty sure it'll have the Harris for President logo on the sheet of paper, because those are literally Kamala Harris talking points. That's the woman chosen to conduct this interview. And I don't know, something tells me you're going to have better questions for Kamala Harris than Dana can come up with. I've got one for her, because we've learned today. Actually, it's sort of a compound question. We learned today that Kamala Harris, according to Axios, getting some sort of anonymous leak from a Kamala Harris staffer, that Kamala Harris plans to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on a border wall. And we can add this to the list of things that she has reversed course on in just the last 5 weeks. This is why it took her forever to agree to an interview, because first she had to decide what she stood for and believed before she actually answered questions about those policies. It'll be fascinating to see if she can keep track of them. Oh, gosh, is it 2020 Kamala? Is it 2 months ago Kamala? Or is it the new improved, joyful Kamala? Vice President Harris, you now claim that you want to build a border wall with hundreds of millions of dollars, but you used to refer to the border wall as Donald Trump's vanity project, and then it was offensive and ineffective and wouldn't work. By the way, Governor Walz, you said the same thing, so I'd love for you to answer this as well. But secondly, you also used to be in favor of doing away with private health insurance. Now your staff claims that that's not your position. You also used to be in favor of defunding the police, but your staff tells us now that's not your position. You also used to be in charge of eliminating gas-powered cars in this country and converting everything to electric vehicles. Your staff claims now that that's not one of your policy positions. There's several more, as you know, but Vice President Harris, I guess it's a simple question. Were you wrong then, 4 years ago, when you held all those beliefs? And you're right now? Was Trump right then, even though you said he was wrong? Or, to summarize, what changed exactly? What newfound information have you gathered? And what have you learned in 4 years that has made you do a 180 on such critically important issues that you campaigned on 4 years ago, but now you claim you no longer hold? Now, do you think Dana Bash will ask anything like that question at this debate Thursday night? Not even close. Well, do you have any questions? I'd love to hear them. We're going to pass them all on to Dana Bash, 877-381-3811. How about Valda in North Carolina? Oh, Valda, they still think that Kamala can win in North Carolina, so you're going to see some campaigning there.
I don't think so.
I don't either.
I do not. No. Listen, they've been coming here for 3 years dumping money, lots and lots of money in this state. But I still don't think that they're going to win.
All right. Well, it's going to take hard work because you know the old adage, if it's not close, they can't try to steal it. So just make sure it's not close. All right, Valda?
That's true. But my thing is, she claimed not long ago, we know how to fix the immigration. That's what she said. We know how to do it. It's a very simple procedure. Well, then if it's so simple, why have they not fixed it?
Yeah. You know, that's a great question. And by the way, should be a part of any dialogue with Kamala Harris, whether it's an interview or some sort of campaign town hall, Valda, or certainly at the debate that Donald Trump has agreed to on the 10th of September. Every time she makes some position like, yes, we know how to fix immigration, all you got to do is turn to her and say, why didn't you do it for the last 3.5 years? Why aren't you doing it now? In fact, why are you standing here? Why aren't you in Washington, D.C. actually doing something? She's acting like she has no position in the government right now.
Absolutely. And, I mean, that came out of her mouth.
Yep.
And on top of that, why do we as taxpayers have to pay for her to fly around and campaign on our plane?
Well, I know that's annoying, Valda, and I appreciate the call. Thanks for calling the Mark Levin Show. This is sort of a long-standing tradition. I'd be totally interested in revisiting it. But the idea is that the president of the United States, when running for re-election, and I guess by extension the vice president, they do have certain governmental constitutional duties and also certain specific security concerns, and they need access to certain infrastructure that the government planes can provide that they've just activated. And I think the campaign reimburses the government for the cost of what a private plane would have been, if I remember right. But yeah. You're right. It burns my butter as well. All right, let's try also in North Carolina, Lonnie. Lonnie, thank you so much for calling. The ladies of North Carolina are lined up tonight. I'm Larry O'Connor. Thanks for calling in.
Well, hey, how are you tonight?
Not bad. I'm loving it. Come on. How am I? I'm a radio host and I get to do the Mark Levin Show. I mean, I'm living the dream.
Filling in for the great one. That's
the best.
You can't get any better than that. The reason I wanted to call is because I'm very curious about the father of Kamala Harris. He is the one that she's modeled herself after, being a socialist and, teaching communists is great, capitalism is not.
Yeah.
And I want to know, where is he? I haven't seen him in the DNC. He's never mentioned. She talked about her mother and, her Indian culture. And I'm sure, I would hope that her father would be proud of what she's accomplished. Where is he?
So it's interesting. His name is Donald Harris. He's from Jamaica. He was a college professor when he met Kamala Harris's mother. They subsequently divorced when Kamala Harris, I believe, was 7 years old, I want to say. She lived with her mother. They moved to Montreal, Canada. By the way, there's a very interesting thing about Kamala Harris that doesn't come up much. It's strange. She was born here in America, but she spent her substantive years, 7 years old to, I think, 18, 19 years old in a foreign country. A foreign language country, too, because Quebecois, French is the main language there. That's an interesting thing. It's not typical for someone who then goes on to run for president. My understanding is that Mr. Harris and Kamala Harris's mother were divorced and didn't have a relationship. And I don't know whether he's had much of a relationship with her or not. He certainly has not been around. And for all I know, I think he could very well be living back in Jamaica at this time.
Could be, but my question is, since she has emulated and adopted his ideology, why don't we hear from him?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
They're certainly, you would think, as the first black woman nominated for president, as we heard echoed through the halls of the United Center every 7 minutes in Chicago last week, you would think that her black father would be so proud of his daughter that he would want to be out there. But boy, they sure are keeping him down, aren't they? It's a fair question, Lonnie, a very fair question.
They don't want the fact that he is communist-leaning to come out.
Perhaps.
In the thought processes of the American public. I'm not sure.
Could very well be. He's 86 years old now. And as I said, I want to say he could very well live back in Jamaica right now. I'd love to. I'll try to research that further, but I don't have that fact for you. Lonnie, thank you for the call, and thanks for listening tonight. I appreciate it. We'd love to hear more of your questions, suggestions for Dana Bash as she takes the big spotlight Thursday night and interviews Kamala Harris. I assure you, and Tim Walz, by the way. Very interesting that they're both going to be there, right? You know, so they can sort of help each other out, share the burden. And by the way, by definition, this means that Kamala Harris will get half as many questions she would have gotten because it'll be split with Tim Walz. They can get their stories straight. They can make sure they can help each other out, right? And just by nature of having the two of them, there's going to be stupid, warm and fuzzy moments where they, what do you two have in common? What kind of music do you like to listen to? How have you really enjoyed being with each other over the last... half of it's going to be that crap. But maybe we'll get a real question in there, but only if you give a good recommendation. 877-381-3811. And in a moment, I'm going to play for you a little highlight of Dana Bash so you can really see why she's the one who got selected. I'm Larry O'Connor. This is The Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin.
Yes, it's true that Mark Levin is the fastest growing radio show in America. The Mark Levin Show is on at 877-381-3811.
All right, listen, I went over there. We're up against it. In a moment, I'll show you Dana Bash's audition tape, how she got the job as the big interviewer for Tim Walz and Kamala Harris this Thursday. And we do want to hear from you. More calls, please, 877-381-3811. Your suggestions for real questions for Kamala Harris. I'm Larry O'Connor, Mark Levin Show. I got to tell you, Larry O'Connor here sitting in for the great one, Mark Levin. I'm the radio host on the morning show on WMAL in Washington, D.C., by the way. If you're looking for a good morning show, stream us, podcast us, download us, subscribe us, whatever you do. It's a good show. It's a good way to start your day, 5 to 9 in the morning Eastern time. And yes, the podcast's available too. And it's based out of Washington, D.C., so, the stakes are kind of high when you're doing talk radio in this town. I also do a daily 1-hour video streaming show for Town Hall Media, a website I've been working with and affiliated with off and on for the last, 12 years now. And it's a great show. It's on all the social media platforms, whether you like Rumble or YouTube or whatever. Just search for Larry Town Hall. You'll find us, and it's a good daily recap of the stories that matter most to us in the middle of the day there. I got to tell you, I'm looking at the call screen. I'm looking at the questions that you all have. I assure you, you have much better questions than Dana Bash is going to come up with in this Potemkin village of a scripted event. By the way, it's the two of them, right? And it's going to be taped. Why is it Republicans? You know this is the truth, right? When Republicans agree to do an interview, they always insist on it being live, right? And they're told no, we have to tape it. We have like 60 minutes so they can slice it and dice it and lately Republicans have been smart and they've just said, no, you want the interview, it'll be live. Period. That's it. No negotiation. When Democrats agree to an interview, they always insist that it's taped because they know the media will do them a solid. They will edit it. They will make it look good for them. And if they say something stupid and there's no walking it back and there's no editing out their stupidity, well, it gives them time to do damage control. See, there can be leaks ahead of time so the damage is mitigated. This is why they do this. So it's going to be pre-recorded on CNN, 9 p.m. Thursday, Dana Bash. And I want to reiterate, if you're Dana Bash right now, you are staring at the ceiling fan rotating over your bed. You're having a sleepless night because you're wringing your hands wondering, what in the hell did I do that made me such a pushover for these people that they think that I'm a cakewalk. If I were Dana Bash, that's what I'd be saying. In reality, she's probably fist pumping and saying, yeah, I scored it. I nailed it. Because, see, when you're a television journalist and your main job is to look good on camera and read a teleprompter, when you look at an interview opportunity like this, you don't look at it as a way to get to the truth and really hold elected officials' feet to the fire and make them earn the public trust by answering the tough questions. Now, that's not how you look at this. You look at this as a get. I got the get. She's the big name. I'm going to get ratings. Everyone's going to be saying my name. I'll be able to negotiate a higher deal next time my contract goes along. Maybe I'll get a primetime job. I don't know why that Caitlin Collins got in the first place. I don't like her. She's too young. That's what's going on in Dana Bash's mind right now. I guarantee it. All right, so I found her audition tape. How did she get the gig? I take you back to last week, Democratic National Convention, after Tim Walz gave his speech. This was Dana Bash.
But they are doing so in trying to put forward male figures, Tim Walz being one of them, Doug Emhoff last night, who can speak to men out there who might not be the sort of testosterone-laden, gun-toting kind of guy who wants to listen to Hulk Hogan and the kind of players that came out at the RNC, or might want to listen to that, but also, in addition, understand that it's okay in 2024 to be a man comfortable in his own skin who supports a woman. And that's something that they really are trying to work on with male voters beyond the base.
There you go. I mean, that's that. They saw that and they said, she gets us. Sign her up. She recognizes that Democrats are appealing to low testosterone men everywhere. I mean, look, we just nominated one for vice president. The other one's going to be the first dude married to a female president. Low T as far as the eye can see. She gets us. Not only does she get us, she's explaining to the American people that it's better to be a low testosterone male who doesn't identify with men with physical prowess or athletic ability. It's better to be the kind of man who, as she just put it, is low testosterone and subservient to others in the room. Who wants to be an alpha anymore? No, we want men to be betas. Dana Bash gets us. My favorite part there, I think, was Jake Tapper. You may have heard him in the background nodding along and agreeing. Yeah, thank God. This is our time. This is our time. Low team men of the country unite around Kamala and Tim. That's all she needed. That's how she got the gig. She'll deliver for him. Do you have any questions? She could use some help. She's not quite sure what to ask. How about Michael in California? Oh, you know better than anyone, Michael, the kind of policies that Kamala Harris will bring to this country. You got a good question?
Hey, Larry, thank you. Ask Ms. Harris to define an assault weapon.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. You know that thing that you want to ban and circumvent the Second Amendment? Can you at least define it for us? Please, once and for all. That was it. Yeah, what do you think?
I doubt he'll get much.
I doubt you'll get much.
Answer.
You know what? You'll get as good an answer on that as if she then turns to Tim Walz and say, and Mr. Walz, Governor Walz, while we've got you, would you please define what a woman is? I don't think we'll have much luck there. All right, Michael, great one. See, these are the questions we need. These are going to be better than anything we see. All right, how about David in Las Vegas? David, what do you think? You got some advice for Dana Bash?
I do, sir. Thank you, Larry, for taking my call.
You bet.
I would ask Mrs. Emhoff, since I don't want to get in trouble for saying her name wrong.
Oh, God. No. I think that would get you in trouble, too, but sure. See, no, you don't want to identify her as Mrs. Emhoff because the only person we know actually named Mrs. Emhoff ended up getting cheated on when Doug Emhoff had sex with the babysitter, and then they got divorced. You remember when he had to pay the babysitter hush money because he got her pregnant?
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but I get you know what, I'm with you on the spirit of it because it's a minefield. You pronounce Vice President Harris's name wrong, and you might as well put a Klan hood on. All right, go ahead, David. I'm sorry, I digress.
I'm sorry, but her being an expert in DEI, being a DE selected because of being of DEI, you mean to tell me she couldn't find a woman of color, a minority, to be her running mate? Instead, she chose the pastiest, whitest guy in the world out there to be her running mate?
Oh, I mean, listen, I get the spirit of your question, but I got to tell you, you're looking at it all wrong. Tim Walz is the DEI hire. He's the one bringing diversity to the ticket. No, think about it. You think about the final qualifying potential running mates. You had the Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, right? I think you had the governor of North Carolina on the short list. You had the senator out of Arizona, the astronaut. Good Lord, Larry, it's a long day. I started early this morning. They were all white guys, and Tim Walz. They were all white guys. So just like Joe Biden said, I don't know who my running mate's going to be, but it'll be a black woman, right? Well, Kamala Harris did the same thing. I don't know who my running mate's going to be, but it's going to be a white dude because we need diversity. Tim Walz is actually bringing the D in DEI.
That's true.
So he is a DEI hire of his own. But, David, it's a good point because, she was asked recently about DEI programs. It was a couple of years ago. And you know how good she is at interviews. So if she is asked by Dana Bash about DEI, hopefully we'll get an answer as brilliant as this.
I think that, listen, today is actually, I believe, an anniversary in terms of Dr. King, right? And I was just in Selma, and we acknowledged the 59th anniversary of Bloody Sunday.
Okay, thank you for the history lesson. But the question was about DEI. Could you please focus on DEI, Vice President Harris?
Of where we want to go and where we don't want to go in the future. And that means also acknowledging the importance of diversity. It means acknowledging the importance of the fact that everyone should have equal opportunity to compete and equity. And then, of course, inclusion, that, hey, let's look around the room and see who's not here. And did we leave the door open?
Oh, man, how brilliant would that answer be? That's who I just want to repeat. We are so fortunate to have such a gifted politician walking among us today. David, this is going to be a great interview. Thank you for helping move the ball down the field. I'm sure Dana Bash is going to take this under consideration. And go Raiders. You guys are going to have a good year this year.
It was a great game the other night, yes. It
was. All right, David, thank you. And I don't know if you saw, your quarterback was up there posing with Donald Trump up in the hotel. That was pretty cool. Good on Minshew. All right, how about Mike in California? Mike, you got a suggestion for this big interview with Kamala Harris? We've got some good ones so far.
Yes, sir. How are you? I started talking before when you named the other Mike.
Sorry about that. I know there's a lot of Mikes from California. What can I tell you?
No, that's okay. I always enjoyed your show, Larry, when you were out here years ago on KABC.
Oh, I missed that show on the mighty KABC in Los Angeles. Thank you. I appreciate it, Mike. What's on your mind tonight?
Yes, I remember listening to you. Listen, I feel like I'm in the twilight zone. This is a woman running for the presidency who's going to correct the mistakes of the past 3.5 years.
Yes. Think about that for a minute. She's actually participated in creating all of those mistakes. Hire me and I'll fix all the things that I just broke.
Yeah, don't you feel like the camera should pan right to Rod Serling in the corner of the room?
Yeah, I think we'd be fortunate to end up in the Twilight Zone. Hey, Mike, in California, thank you for the kind words, and I appreciate the call. By the way, Mike is listening on the mighty KRLA. Since we mentioned KBC, we should probably mention the station we're on right now in Los Angeles. We love KRLA and all our friends at Salem. Thank you for that, Mike. All right, how about, Kurt in Staten Island? Kurt, the last bastion of sanity in all of New York City, Staten Island. I love that you guys are still hanging on to some sort of rational thought. What do you say, Kurt?
I want to say this first. My first time hearing you, Larry. You got a good show, man. You're really good, man.
Appreciate that. Thank you, brother.
Yeah. Here's the thing. From the time that Joe Biden was forced out of office until Kamala Harris got nominated, she was talking about how she's going to fix the economy. But for the 3.5 years prior, she and Biden were always touting how good the economy is doing. So what has to be fixed?
Right. That's a good question. Listen, if Biden hadn't been forced off the ticket, and if he was still running, Kurt, we'd still be hearing him saying, we've got the strongest economy on the planet. Record number of jobs. We finally beat Medicare. Yeah, we'd still be living in that fantasy land, and Kamala Harris would be there. That's right. That's right. Bidenomics is working.
Yeah. It's so sad, man. So sad.
All right, brother. Thanks, Kurt. I appreciate it. Tell Staten Island I said hi. You know, it reminds me what Kurt just laid out here. I don't know if you've seen this. It's just a 30-second ad. I think it's just on the web right now. I hope they start running it, because the Trump campaign could very well have come out with the greatest ad so far in this election. I want to break it down for you. Listen to it. And just for the visual, it's 2 TV screens with Kamala Harris on one side from an appearance she did about 10 days ago, and then Kamala Harris on the other side, something that she was saying about 5 months ago. Here, take a listen.
Everyday prices are too high. Food.
Oh, I'm sorry. And one other thing in the setup, the title of the ad is The Debate We've All Been Waiting For, Harris versus Harris.
Everyday prices are too high. Food, rent, gas, back to school clothes. That is called Bidenomics. A loaf of bread cost 50% more today. Ground beef is up almost 50%. There's not much left at the end of the month. Bidenomics is working. The price of housing has gone up. It feels so hard to just be able to get ahead. And we are very proud of Bidenomics.
It's a great ad. It is a great ad on something. It's so simple, too. It uses her words for the entirety of the ad against herself. It shows her to be the buffoon and silly individual and unserious person that she is. And most importantly, when she's talking about how bad things are right now and how expensive things are and how hard it is to get by, she is saying exactly what you're feeling. She is conveying exactly the dilemma that you've been trudging through every single day for the last 3.5 years. And, of course, the pièce de résistance is showing what she was saying just a few short months ago, locking her in as being responsible for all of those problems. And finally, it shows what a duplicitous, flip-flopping, lying fool that she is. And she expects you to get away with it. And the brilliance of this ad is in just 30 seconds it hammers home the most important issues in this campaign. The economy that Kamala Harris broke, and Kamala Harris's lies and lack of character and ability to do anything about it. My name's Larry O'Connor. You're listening to The Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin.
You know, I feel bad. Larry O'Connor here filling in for Mark Levin. We're at the end of the show, and I haven't attacked Joe Scarborough once. I haven't called him out for the duplicitous, lying buffoon that he is. So to call back to the second hour of the show where I read aloud the letter that Mark Zuckerberg wrote admitting that the FBI forced him to censor the Hunter Biden laptop story and that it was all a complete and total censorship job. And, of course, the Hunter Biden laptop story we all know was accurate and true. I want you to hear Joe Scarborough in October of 2020 talking about this very same story.
And talk about Facebook having problems and Twitter having problems with a story that even the New York Post knew was a lie. They published a series of lies peddled to them by Rudy Giuliani, who admitted that nobody else would take it but Rupert Murdoch's New York Post, because they might look into it and tell the truth. Here we are in 2020. This is what it's come down to, America. Giuliani is feeding Russian misinformation to Donald Trump and feeding Russian disinformation to the New York Post
Joe Scarborough was really on it back then, man. He had his finger on the pulse of the story.
Seriously? It's the idiocy, the sheer idiocy. You are revealed right now, but you will be revealed throughout history for basically running cover for Russians. And you've got...
Yeah, he nailed it. That's Joe Scarborough, journalist in good standing with MSNBC. In fact, they might give him a raise. Thanks for listening. Larry O'Connor in for the great one, Mark Levin.